Bogosity podcast for the 26th of September 2016. We are live again and doing it early because this weekend and next weekend are both filming blocks for the Woods Talk. I didn't want to cancel it 2 weeks in a row without announcing it in advance. Plus, we probably don't want to get too far behind with all the stuff that's going on. But joining us, at least so far, is Charles Thomas.
Hello.
And Chris Hangartner.
Hey.
So let's start in with the news of the Bogus. We should probably talk a little bit about the attacks in New York, New Jersey, and Minnesota. Although I'm not sure what we can say about them that we haven't said a million times before. And we normally say that our thoughts are with all of those who had family and loved ones killed in the attacks, except in this case, there apparently aren't any. Yeah,
for the most part. And thank goodness, because in New York and such, is that... this could have been a really bad thing, but, thank goodness for those homeless people in New Jersey who found the bombs and probably saved a ton of lives.
Yep.
They should get something, a hookup for a job or something like that.
Oh, yeah. They found a backpack thinking it was full of food, but it had a strange device. That was pretty awesome of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start off with the knife attack in St. Cloud, Minnesota. ISIS apparently claimed responsibility for this, and I'm not sure why, because it was pretty inept. 9 people were stabbed, only 1 was critically injured, and the perp was shot to death by police. So
it's pretty funny, because people are constantly saying over and over again, and it is sad what happened, but they say over and over again, if we get rid of guns, these mass attacks will go away. Yet we're seeing a lot of these bomb and knife attacks lately.
Oh, yeah. Knife attacks with, double-digit deaths. But this wasn't one of them. I don't think this is really one that ISIS can put in the win column.
Yeah, but then again, I think their whole motto, think what they're trying to do, and I think it's succeeding. And with this New York thing, I think it might succeed, is that, we are everywhere. You can't stop us. The whole, you don't know who is going to do it. We're in your country, that sort of thing. And that fuels, sadly, the whole craziness that Trump is, the whole we have to deport people or we have to do the whhole verifications, which it's already, there are verifications and such. But how do you know? My question to all of that is, and the people who are living through that, not just in the Minnesota stuff, but even the people like in France and Germany and all those people right there who are going through some real hard times, the question them is like, how do you stop people who are there, who live in that culture, but also get radicalized in that culture via, say, the internet or friends and family and all this type of stuff? So what do you do then? Do you just ban Muslims? Do you ban them? You can't do that because it's religion, it's ideas and everything else. And I just don't like the idea of banning something of ideas and such. You don't want to do.
You've got the same issue that you have with let's ban guns. The thing is, it's hard to go after the people who are actually doing the harm or about to do the harm. It's a lot easier to go after innocent people who haven't done anything.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention, going back, everyone says this is why we got to have the background checks and all that. Yet they ignore one little critical detail, although I think they know and they just want to use it as an excuse to pass tougher gun laws is, well, what if the person doesn't have a history? What if,
most of them don't.
To that horrible, most of them don't. A lot of people flat out said, I think there was one shooting that occurred in Illinois one time on a university, and they asked, did this guy show any signs of violence? And they were like, no, his family was like, we're legitimately shocked. The only thing that kind of seemed a little wrong with him is that in the past couple of weeks leading up to the shooting, he seemed a little depressed and out of touch with us. But other than that, he didn't show any signs.
Yeah. And funny enough, talking about that, about the whole gun thing, funny enough, I think it was this article that came out on the Federalist. I think I shared this on the, if only anyone have read it and such. It's Trevor Noah basically just destroys the argument of gun control, saying that you don't know who it is. Like he says, quote, what also strange about strange, this man generally thought this person talking about the whole Muslims get outside and everything. Say, that stupid idea. He says, what's strange is this man generally thought people who go around blowing people up will be stopped by a sign. We realize you were talking to terrorists, not vampires. You don't need to be invited in. All right. or maybe he's onto something. Because if you think about it, we never tried that. We never actually tried to repel terrorists with signs. Yeah, maybe that's all the airports need is a sign that says no terrorists.
Yeah, just like those signs that say gun-free zone. That'll work about as well.
Oh yeah.
It's just this. They have that idea, like, wow, you can't stop that, but yet they can put that, they connect the dots there, but yet when all this gun-free zones, it doesn't work. I mean, the Santa Hook, man, all the stuff, Santa Hook, Combine, Aurora, movie theater, all these other things that have gun-free zones. Guess what? The criminals are not going to look at that and say, oh, we're just going to go pack away. We're going to leave. No, it doesn't work that way.
So you also had the bombing in New York City, and there was one interesting thing about it. The press jumped all over Donald Trump for calling it a bombing. Pretty much at the same time, Hillary called it a bombing. Not only did the press not say anything about it, CNN actually edited out the part where she said it was a bombing.
That's Shane, that's just the right-wing conspiracy.
Yeah.
The Republican conspiracy. They've been after Hillary since the 90s. Yeah. Anything you hear about Hillary isn't true. It's just the Republicans telling you that.
I honestly think Hillary might be insane. I truly think she is, because she had a press conference talking about the alt-right internet memes. You saw this, didn't you? This whole entire press conference.
The frog thing.
Pepe.
Pepe the frog. Even though in all my experience he has never really been in a white nationalist, for some reason she said Pepe is a white nationalist symbol, and we're just like, citation needed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think I'm like, at this point, it's just like you're giving more. You wonder why the media no one in America does not trust any American news source right now. They don't trust
you would have
them.
to be the granddaddy of all dopes to take anything the media says seriously nowadays.
And going back to Hillary Clinton, there's also what happened recently, that infamous thing where Hillary was ditching out on rallies. There were a lot of people saying that she's not feeling well. Hillary said, "Oh no, I'm perfectly fine," and then she passed out during that event at the 9/11 memorial service. And she still kept on saying, "No, I'm fine." And then finally, a few days after that event, a doctor came out and said, "Yeah, Hillary's got pneumonia."
Well, I think there's been a couple other times as well where, she just wasn't able to keep standing, and it's like people are like right there, right at her, ready to take her, under the arms and hold her up. It's like something's going on. Yeah, I don't know if it's like the Parkinson's and everything, like all of the internet quacks are saying. I don't really buy that, but something's going on.
And that's the thing is, it's just the reason why a lot of people it's the fueling the thing is like, this is why old people should not be taking this type of work, like the 68, 70 plus year old people should not be there because of health concerns and the stress involved running a country.
My mother's 78 and she's 10 times healthier than Hillary appears.
Well, it's a case-by-case basis, case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Let's get back to New York. We had one bomb set off in a dumpster in Manhattan, and 29 people were annoyed. That's really what it sounds like. They say 29 people injured, but I don't think any of them were hospitalized, so. And then you had the pressure cooker, a few blocks away, and the woman who found it said it looked like a child science experiment. No one was injured, but a few people probably chuckled. You know, it occurs to me that a dumpster probably isn't the best place for a bomb anyway, because it's going to redirect the blast upward, not outward.
Yep.
So that's.
Oh yeah, this is just a little minor thing, but I don't know if it's still relevant. But going back to that whole ban thing, I remember that shortly after the Boston bombing marathon occurred, there was actually a movement that was saying we need to ban pressure cookers. And at first I thought, oh, this is something hilarious. Nope. Did some research. That girl was serious. She wanted to ban pressure cookers.
And you see, if we had had a ban on pressure cooker, then we wouldn't have had that pressure cooker in New York not explode and not kill people.
What about Timothy McVeigh? He didn't use a pressure cooker. He used nitro fuel. Well, then we got to ban nitro fuel and fertilizer. Well, say goodbye to the entire U.S. economy then.
Yeah,
because almost every single. Yeah.
And people are like, well, we have to, Exactly. The banning and stuff, like it's going to 100% work because Lord knows the black market doesn't exist, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I even saw a funny parody where a guy says, hey, you know what? I know the perfect way about how we can still have our guns and our knives and all that and still not worry about us killing each other. It's like, well, what's that? Let's make it a rule that every person from now on has to have their hands chopped off. So now they can't pick up the gun and use it.
Yeah. Don't give them ideas.
Yeah. Of course the politicians are going to make some sort of excuse saying, oh no, we need our hands, like they always do. I mean, I will say this. I will never, ever, ever take a politician seriously when they say, I just don't understand why the average American citizen needs a gun. Yeah, because you've got a small army of highly trained black ops soldiers in tuxedos protecting you. Yeah, you see those suits, those guys, with the sunglasses and the suits, that's the United States Secret Service. And there's no doubt in my mind that underneath those suits, they've got a couple of submachine guns under them that are fully automatic. So,
it's
easy for you. It's easy for you to say, but the average American can't afford a Secret Serviceman now.
Right. And, well, it's just like those, celebrities in L.A. They say, well, people don't need guns, and then they walk around with armed bodyguards.
Oh yeah, like Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah, that infamous scandal in the 90s when she was criticizing guns, after Columbine, and then an independent reporter leaked out, Rosie O'Donnell, your bodyguard just applied for a pistol permit.
Oops. But yeah, the story again, when you look at the whole thing, and I'm happy that no one seriously got injured and they arrested the bomber and such, it is very interesting that they actually took him down. I thought they were just going to take him out, actually,
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing that going back when you said about shooting them dead is that it might sound weird, but actually I think it is best, that we try to preserve lives. And one reason actually an interesting point I brought up is that one reason why we should try to preserve lives is not only because, life is important and all that, but think of it. If the person truly is guilty, what if he is part of a big conspiracy? If he's alive, you can interrogate him,
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's a thing, actually. My friend Jason, he was in the military. He knew a couple of guys in Delta Force, and that's a really elite Black Ops unit of the U.S. Army. When they heard news that Osama bin Laden had been assassinated, you know what their reaction was? Oh my God, those fucking SEALs did it now.
Yep.
And they're like, what? And they're like, well, and he was like, well, why is that, buddy? He's like, because, dude, bin Laden, yeah, he's the head honcho, but he has connections all over. There's dozens of terrorist organizations that want the United States dead in the Middle East, several of which are even deadlier than Al-Qaeda. If we had him alive, think of all the information we could have learned, but now we don't. He's dead.
Yep.
That would have been much more efficient.
Yeah, any secrets he had in his mind died with him.
Yeah, so, rounding off this story, you've got the pipe bomb in New Jersey. Again, no one was injured, but it did result in the cancellation of a 5K charity run, which I'm sure is a severe blow to the infidels.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, 9/11 this isn't.
Yeah, it's, that's actually another thing I find so hilarious is that every time like a terrorist, like when they kill one or two people, now it is sad those people are gone, but it just irks me when the politician's like, oh my God, 2 Americans died. We gotta do something.
And then you drop a drone bomb on 24 children in the Middle East and no one says boo.
Yep, and then the terrorists say, the American infidels killed our children, we gotta strike back, and in turn someone suicide bombs America, and then the politicians say, we gotta do more, and then it's a never-ending cycle of destruction.
So, our next story, this is something that's close to home to me, literally. There was a violent demonstration in Charlotte. It started out peaceful, but it turned violent. And this occurred in the wake of a shooting by a black man by a black police officer. Police had said that Keith Lamont Scott was armed and posing an imminent deadly threat when officers shot him. But Scott's family said he was unarmed and was actually holding a book he was reading while waiting to pick his child up from school. We don't really know who to believe because they haven't released the body cam footage yet.
Yeah.
And Charmek police chief.
Want to bet $10 that it's either lost or edited?
Well, Charmek police chief Kerr Putney said that they won't release it until the investigation is over, and there's a new state law that goes into effect October 1st that forbids police agencies from releasing body cam footage to the public without a court order.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
People say, well, we just want to make sure, now look, I'm not going to say, it's automatically the police were guilty, but I'm just going to let this be known to anyone who thinks we're anti-police. It's just that with what's been going on, it's natural for us to be skeptical of the police lately,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, what we do know is that they were searching for a man with outstanding warrants, and that man was not Scott. And it's not even clear why they were barking orders at him to begin with, but we've got confused and conflicting reports that say that they ordered him out of the car and then that he posed a threat to the officers by stepping out of the car.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with the police lately. It's like everything's an assault on the police. I mean, hell, there's actual accounts, where police have flat out said we beat this guy up because he assaulted an officer. The video shows up, and all that happened was that the guy was just, he was surrendering. He was saying, okay, guys, okay, leave me alone. And in the process, his arm accidentally touched one of the officers, and the officer was like, oh, he's attacking me, get him. And the judge said, yep, touching an officer without his permission counts as assault. So they have the right to beat the living crap out of you if you even poke their shoulder or ask for directions.
Now, Scott's daughter said, now we only have her word for this so far, but she said that they tasered him first and then shot him 4 times. And she also said that Scott was disabled. So that led to protests downtown, and as sometimes happens with these things, it seems to be happening more and more, the protests start turning violent. You had looting and arson, and at one point you had police showing up in riot gear, which always seems to calm things down, and they actually shot in tear gas, and then a reporter heard a gunshot, and a man, Justin Carr, was lying in the street. Officials had said that he died, and then later said that he was on life support, but he's now been confirmed dead. So.
I'm just...
Yeah, and I hate situations like this because on one hand, it's wrong what the police did, but also people, and I'm going to say this over and over again, if you want to protest police brutality, go ahead, but make it peaceful and aim it at the people who direct at it. Protest the police precinct. Protest the city council. Don't riot or hold, like this happened in that one case where the police strangled that one guy. Don't hold it outside an NBA studio so people can't get in to see the game.
Right.
That actually happened. I was actually commenting. I actually posted a comment on YouTube when that first happened, and I'm like, okay, so you're gonna fight police brutality and show the police you mean business by going to the NBA studio? How does that make sense?
And you know what? I'm going to say this. It's the same repeat. It's becoming far too routine.
Yeah.
It is routine in heavily black neighborhoods. There's something horrible happened to police. People riot. They destroy their own community. And it pretty much after the facts are laid out, it looks like might be some issue with there was a gun there. Some say the police planted it. I don't know. Because it would not surprise me because police are completely, again, they are not there to protect you. They are there
But I still will say this, people. The reason why you also shouldn't riot is because that destroys the cause. Because that doesn't send a message to the police saying we need to be more passive. It's sending a message saying, see, we need to be more aggressive because they'll make the argument if we're more passive, this is going to happen. What you need to do is, I understand it's hard to look at, but you need to be as calm as possible because then it's much more easier to convince, other people that look, the police are acting aggressively, and if you're acting very nonviolent and the police are acting like dickheads, it's easier for outside people who are new to the subject to say, yeah, the police are going overhead. Whereas if you're holding a sign going Black Lives Matter and saying fuck the police and making violent gestures, well, it's still wrong for the police to beat you up. An outside person's gonna say, well, the kid's kind of asking for it, I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., if he was alive, he would be utterly ashamed of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love, the thing is, when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, and to me, it just reminds me of the failure and complete failure of Occupy. I was talking to this with Wizard of Cause, with this over at Hangouts and such on my channel. It's a frustrating thing because they have something there. Something with the Black Lives Matter. Police brutality is a huge issue, not just with black people, but also, Kelly Thomas. You can't forget that. That was just getting beat down.
Well, the Washington Post is trying to keep track of these, and according to them, so far in 2016, 706 people have been shot and killed by police. 163 of them have been black, so that's 23%. So that's disproportionate. It's a greater portion than they are in the population, but it's still majority white. So you'd think that would mean that this is an issue we could come together on and say, really, this is an issue of police accountability that affects everybody.
Yeah. I will say that is my biggest problem with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not that I don't think Black Lives Matter, because I do. It's just that they're trying to make it a black issue. And the thing is, the police abuse everyone. In fact, that's my only beef with that one guy who refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance was just that, the national anthem was just that he was like, well, it's a Black Lives issue. It's like, no, good, you're protesting, but you should do it because it's an all lives matter issue. The police are going to beat the crap out of you regardless of your race or religion nowadays. They don't care.
Are they shoot your dog? Are they steal your...
Yeah.
Basically, oh no, I'm sorry. That's
Charles. I told this to Shane on the last Bogosity, but I'm actually working on a comic strip, and I'm going to add a new character called Officer McPower, who's a stereotype of the overzealous police officer who abuses his power, and he makes a joke saying the police are not racist. Whether you're black, white, green, pink, polka dot, whatever, if you're doing something and we don't like it, we're going to beat the living shit out of you regardless of your race.
Pretty much. It's an organized gang. And here's the real issue of not only, the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And to me, the real solution to this problem is not just, better, like if these people go to jail and everything, they need to have we have to make sure these guys not only get convicted, indicted, but also convicted for these crimes. But then again, the whole system is completely corrupted.
And that's another reason why police got to stop beating up people, is because on the rare occasion when there are legitimate criminals out there, the problem with the police is that they don't show restraint, because there are incidences where people are holding knives, they're threatening to stab the police. The problem is that the police's reaction is to tase the guy, beat him in the head, and then shoot him 17 times. When a good example, where if you look at the UK, when a similar guy did that, what did they do? They tased the guy, cuffed him, and took him away. Problem solved.
Yeah, UK, they're better. They're better at doing that policing, and I think it's connected to not only that, but how we handle criminals here, criminal rights, and all these other issues. And I'm not saying that black people don't have issues, because trust me, there are a lot of issues that would actually help the situations in the black community that would help. But right now, it is the right. They need not only just reform, but also I think you need to just stop with the state policing altogether. I think we should just basically, because again, there are private police that actually do the job cheaply, but also more effectively. In fact, there was actually an article, I think like a local Texas town, that said that we used private police. And it worked better. It was a lot cheaper than using the federal or state police.
Yeah, I think
it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. This is a little funny. Going back to the Second Amendment, I was actually having a discussion with a person like this one time, and we were talking about what we don't like about the police and all that, and people say. And if people say, well, if you don't like the police, what would be the alternative? And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure that if there's no police, what's going to happen is that people are going to get together. They're going to find people who are willing to do it, and they're going to make a little local militia, and they'll do the policing. And people say, but that'll be terrible. That'll be mob rule. It'll be like in Mississippi Rising, where the Ku Klux Klan owns the militia and they beat up everyone. And I'm like, yeah, because that's not already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it was Sharptown, Texas. In 2012, they fired their cops and hired SEAL security solutions to patrol their streets. But not only that, in 20 months, they reduced crime by 61%. Yep. And it was cheaper, and all these things. And I'm like, this is the solution. this right here is the solution. I mean, I'm not, maybe something like that. Yeah, organize local. I don't say local militias because it seems like it's just, a little too. What's the word? A little too a little hard edge because again,
Wild West-ish. That's You want us to go back to the Wild West,
even though the violence was not that bad compared to what we have now.
Yeah, I mean, I even like how there was actually a documentary that was talking about guns used by the Wild West, and they flat out said in the middle of it the reason why the OK Corral and that one shooting that occurred where some citizens fought against Jesse James' gang, the reason why they were top stories was because they were rare occurrences.
Pretty much. And that's what you have to realize. Most people have to realize.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, and going back to this, I think the real reason why there's a lack of accountability with the police department when people ask, why police aren't being held accountable, I think the large contributing factor is because of one simple thing. It's the exact same reason why the public schools and the post office give such crappy service. It's because the police department is a government-backed monopoly, and they're always going to be there no matter what. You can hate the police all you want. Heck, you can even fire the bad officers, but the policies that protect the police monopoly are still going to be in there, so it doesn't matter. That's why police, act the way they do. It's not because they're naturally evil. It's just because they're a government-backed monopoly. They know they've got a union and a local governor that's gonna protect them no matter what. So they have no incentive to watch what they're doing.
Improve or anything like that. There's no incentive. There was no.
We need to move on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no incentive.
Yeah, we need to move on. Before we do, how's my audio sounding? Am I being a Dalek anymore?
Still a Dalek.
What? Let me try turning the cam off. Maybe it's a bandwidth thing. I did 2 tests earlier today, and it was perfect. And so I don't know what's going on with it. All right, this next story is a good analysis by Stephen Novella of a new study of biofuels. And biofuels like corn ethanol were promised to be better for the environment and help with global warming. The idea was that the carbon that's put in the atmosphere when burned came from the atmosphere when the plants were grown, so it's completely neutral. And most of the analyses to date have been made that assumption that, of course, it's going to be neutral. Even then, it's been debatable. You have to burn more than a gallon of biofuels to get the same energy as a gallon of gasoline. Corn ethanol actually takes more energy to create than you get by using it.
Yep.
And some other plants like sugarcane are kind of borderline. Maybe it's just squeaking by, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah. And of course, Jane, they're using that dirty word carbon. Yeah. Like this is a little off topic, but I'm just going to say this because it says partially an environmental message. Environmentalists, carbon is not the enemy. Yes, there are certain types of carbon that are pollutant, but stop using this blanketed statement like carbon, because we need carbon in the atmosphere.
Well, they're using it as a shortcut for CO2 and methane, which are warming gases. But this study looks at that first claim of carbon neutrality, and they directly analyzed the increase of carbon capture from growing feedstock and compared that to the CO2 that would be released when the fuel is burned. They found that instead of being 100%, which would be completely carbon neutral, it's actually 37%, which means that once you figure in all the efficiencies, it's not only a net increase in CO2, it's actually worse than burning fossil fuels.
And yet we're still forced to pay for it because most gas nowadays has 10% ethanol. So,
and that is without considering the CO2 put in the atmosphere due to the energy consumed by all the processing. This is just what the fuel itself is doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just like the hybrid cars. For instance, when because I remember when I was like still in middle school, when hybrid cars were all the rage, and they were talking about how they don't use energy on the road, so therefore you're never gonna have to worry about CO2 pollutants. Turns out hybrid cars aren't very fuel efficient. They still require gas for long-term roads, and not to mention the batteries they use are more polluting to mass produce and to replace and fix than they are a standard fuel car.
Yeah. So a good question seems to be, where is that extra carbon coming from? And the study didn't look into that, but I looked at a lot of the discussion people were having surrounding it, and people seem to be concluding that most of it actually came from the fertilizer they were using, because fertilizer has to be high in carbon. So that's where it's coming from. It's not just getting carbon from the atmosphere, it's getting it from other places.
Oh, yeah, it's just, it's like, I'm going to say this. This is why I have such a difficult time negotiating with environmentalists. It's not because, I don't believe, global warming is a hoax and all that. It's just that they're so inconsistent with their science, They don't apply it consistently.
So the study's authors concluded, quote, "The assumption that biofuels are inherently carbon neutral is a premise of most climate-related fuel policies promulgated to date. However, this analysis found that the gains in CO2 uptake by feedstock were enough to offset biofuel-related biogenic CO2 emissions by only 37% over 2005 to 2013, showing that biofuel use fell well short of being carbon neutral even before considering process emissions."
Yeah, but of course, some leftist, some green leftist out there is gonna pull a whole Pascal's wager on us saying, "Oh, but we can't afford to look at that. Global warming's gonna kill us all if we don't do it."
Even though we know it's worse for climate change in addition to being more expensive and less efficient.
Yeah, Bjorn Lomborg pointed it out, and Bjorn Lomborg, wrote that book, flat out saying, look, it's good to be pro-environment. He believes in man-made global warming, but the difference is that he says we need to be rational and reasonable with how we combat global warming instead of doing these blanket statements like subsidizing, alternate fuels and all that. We need to know if they're going to work or not.
Okay, so more news on Edward Snowden. Probably not a coincidence that this is coming out around the same time as the Oliver Stone movie, but the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence released a 3-page executive summary, 4 counting the cover photo, of its 2-year inquiry into Edward Snowden. Barton Gellman, senior fellow of the Century Foundation and one of 4 journalists to first receive the Snowden documents, called it, quote, "an aggressively dishonest piece of work." He then went back on that comment, saying that it's actually worse than that. So these are quotes from his analysis. Quote, "After 25 months of labor, the committee's comprehensive review of an immensely complex subject weighs in at 36 pages, none of which we may read because it must remain classified."
Yep, that's their general excuse.
Yeah.
Come on, people. Why do we even still have the Espionage Act? That goes all the way back to World War I, and that was to protect us from German spies, which, by the way, they didn't really have any in America, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. Washington, World War I's over, Germany's no longer an enemy, so get rid of that act. That's another irony, is that a lot of these acts were actually temporary. They were temporary, saying, okay, we're only going to put them in place for World War I, and then once the war's over, we're going to repeal them, but... To quote Milton Friedman, nothing is more permanent than a temporary government policy.
Exactly.
Yep.
Quote, "An accompanying press release quotes committee members describing Snowden as no hero, not a patriot, and a traitor, a serial exaggerator and fabricator with a pattern of intentional lying." And
isn't Hillary Clinton guilty of all that, though?
I was like, who's he? Who are they talking about, him or Hillary? So yeah, the whole thing is basically one ad hominem attack, and so he goes over the committee's claims one by one. Quote, "He claimed to have left Army basic training because of broken legs, when in fact he washed out because of shin splints. This is verifiably false. Snowden's Army paperwork says he met the demanding standards of an 18X Special Forces recruit and mustered into the Army on June 3, 2004. The diagnosis that led to his discharge on crutches was bilateral tibial stress fractures." That sounds like broken legs to me.
Yeah. Of course, the politicians are going to shop around and find a doctor who will confirm their status. Yeah, they'll find that one doctor who'll say, well, technically that's not a broken leg. It's this other rare, obscure injury, but it doesn't qualify as a broken leg.
It's a fracture. It's a broken leg. You can't get around a fracture.
I know, but that's just how they play.
Yeah. Quote, He claimed to have obtained a high school degree equivalent when in fact he never did. I do not know how the committee could get this one wrong in good faith. According to the official Maryland State Department of Education test report, Snowden sat for the high school equivalency test on May 4, 2004. He needed a score of 2250 to pass. He scored 3550. His diploma number 269403 was dated June 2, 2004, the same month he would have graduated had he returned to Arundel High School after losing his sophomore year to mononucleosis.
Oh.
And then, quote, he claimed to have worked for the CIA as a senior advisor, which was a gross exaggeration of his entry-level duties as a computer technician. Judge for yourself. Here are the three main rules Snowden played at the CIA. 1. His entry-level position as a contractor was the system administrator, one among several, of the agency's Washington metropolitan area network. 2. After that, he was selected for and spent 6 months in training as a telecommunications information security officer responsible for all classified technology in U.S. embassies overseas. 3. In his third CIA job, the title on his Dell business card was Solutions Consultant / Cyber Referent for the intelligence community writ large, the company's principal point of contact for cyber contracts and proposals. In that role, Snowden met regularly with the chiefs and deputy chiefs of the CIA's technical branches to talk through their cutting-edge computer needs. And the next one.
Yeah, the government's more government lies.
Yeah.
And like I said, 99% of the stuff they accuse Snowden of they've already done.
Yeah. So,
I mean, come on, people. Stop criticizing Hillary. Stop criticizing Edward Snowden when Hillary Clinton, it was clearly shown. Oh, now granted, she didn't intend to do it, but she was sending highly classified emails on an insecure area so they could be intercepted by basically anyone. In fact, I've actually heard that's actually how some of our enemies get our information, is simply because they just track down what our politicians and military generals are doing and just intercept the email.
Oh, it's easy to do.
Yeah, very easy to do.
So, quote, he also doctored his performance evaluations. Truly deceptive, this. Snowden discovered and reported a security hole in the CIA's Human Resources intranet page. With his supervisor's permission, he made a benign demonstration of how a hostile actor can take control. He did not change the content of his performance evaluation. He changed the way it was displayed on screen.
Man, when are these politicians gonna stop lying?
I don't know, when they're dead.
When we prove God exists.
Yeah. Quote, and obtain new positions at NSA by exaggerating his resume and stealing the answers to an employment test. The first clause is too vague to check. The second seems to be based on an unsubstantiated public statement from Booz Allen Vice Chairman Mike McConnell. The exam question is routinely given to freshly enlisted Navy and Air Force recruits to determine their aptitude for entry-level computer network operations. Snowden was a Microsoft certified systems engineer with years of experience under his belt by then. I can't explain why anyone thinks he would have to steal the answers.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of like this one cartoon I saw where it's a comedy and they were accusing this one straight A student of cheating, even though she had a clear record of being a really hardworking student. She pointed it out. She says, "Why would I need to cheat on a paper when I studied for 24 hours in a row for this test?"
Quote, in May 2013, Snowden informed his supervisor that he would be out of the office to receive treatment for worsening epilepsy. In reality, he was on his way to Hong Kong with stolen secrets. True, when Snowden decided to leave the NSA with a cache of documents for public release, he gave a false cover story for his absence. That's it. That's the committee's whole case for Snowden as a big fat liar.
Yeah, he lied about why he was leaving. Yeah, because he knew that you guys would do this to him. Yep.
And he also covers some more minor prevarications. Quote, Snowden fled to Russia? Well, no, he tried to fly to Ecuador, and the U.S. government trapped him in the Moscow transit lounge by revoking his passport. Snowden could have relied on whistleblower protections. The Washington Post examined that proposition and found it largely incorrect. Snowden stole 1.5 million classified documents. In fact, the nation's most senior intelligence officers, no admirers of Snowden, have repeatedly said they can only surmise the number. And he concludes, quote, "What are we to make of Subcommittee Chairman Lynn Westmoreland? In language largely echoed by the official report, Westmoreland said Snowden did more damage to U.S. national security than any other individual in our nation's history." How about FBI agent Robert Hansen, who helped the former Soviet Union roll up a whole U.S. espionage network and kill our agents? Or Julius Rosenberg, maybe, who only handed over plans for the atomic bomb, or as someone have it, George W. Bush, for the catastrophic choices he made in Iraq.
Yeah. Or there was also, I forgot the guy's name, but there was this one guy who stole stuff from the U.S. Navy, and basically he compromised the entire U.S. Naval Command, basically, so...
yeah.
Yeah, so so there was actually a general that flat out said that had we gone to war with the Soviet Union before discovering this, the Soviets would have had a massive naval advantage over us because they basically had all our shipping routes and all that.
Yep.
So.
All right, how am I sounding? Am I still sounding like a Dalek?
Yep.
Oh, jeez. Yep. All right, well, let's move on.
If it makes you feel better, I'll tell you sound like a Cyberman.
All right, now it's time to impugn this week's biggest bogon emitter. And Chris, you're going to take this one for us?
Oh yeah. Anyway, this was kind of unexpected for me, actually. I was browsing YouTube like I usually do because when I'm bored I go on YouTube, and I was browsing these lists on the richest, and you've heard of these guys, the richest? Yeah.
I think they do a lot of the clickbait stuff, don't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, they do some pretty okay lists and all that. Well, anyway, I was looking through this one little video just out of boredom. It was called, it wasn't a top 10 list. It was evil people who have to be banned from the internet. And, they had the usual, like those cyber bullies and all that. But there was one name that really made me facepalm, and that was Milo Yiannopoulos. And why was that?
Of course.
It was apparently over the whole Twitter ban incident. So basically what they did was that they said Milo Yiannopoulos wrote a review about the new Ghostbusters movie, and they said that he was personally attacking the one of the main cast members. Apparently she got into a little, Twitter war with him, and some exchanges.
No, there wasn't any real Twitter war. She got on Twitter whining about how he's the victim. Yeah. And the only thing he came with, there were like 2 tweets. One where he said, okay, make a bad movie and now you play the victim. And then she came back with something with just hideous grammar, and he came back and said something like subliterate, blame the American educational system or something like that. And that was the extent. It was just those 2 tweets.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, the richest even went as so far as saying, well, Edward Snowden basically used his freedom of speech. He still encouraged his followers to harass the cast members of the Ghostbusters movie.
Where did he do that?
No, he didn't.
Where did he do that? Can you quote him? Can you quote him for me?
Nope, they didn't. They didn't quote him. They didn't quote him. They just showed those two tweets and not much else. So that's what I wanted to tell them. I wanted to tell them citation. Now look, I don't agree with everything Milo says. He's pro-Trump and pro-immigration restriction. I don't agree with that. But come on, people. All he's doing is giving an opinion. Boo-hoo, he didn't like your movie. So what? And really, that's just so stupid of the richest, because they fell, I don't know if they deliberately lied or they just fell for it, because he was banned from Twitter, but it wasn't for cyberbullying. It was because a whole bunch of SJWs were complaining and bitching and whining, and then finally Twitter just says, you know what, we can't deal with this. Let's just ban him and try to stop it all.
Yeah.
So I will say this: there was victim blaming in that incident, but it wasn't but it wasn't those poor, rich, Hollywood actresses. It was Milo, because they basically said, well, you know what? You wouldn't have all these women accusing you, making these false accusations if you would have just kept your mouth shut.
Yep. So that makes the richest this week's biggest bogon emitter.
Yep.
Oh, you're back. Yeah. Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, I was just helping out with the groceries and such.
Oh.
Okay. And now let's devitrify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Did the Idiot Extraordinaire part come through fine? Is it just my voice, or?
The Idiot Extraordinaire sounded like a dialect, too.
Oh, that was fine on my end, so.
Yeah. Okay.
It's probably could be my recording.
I did like 2 tests earlier today, and it was perfect both times, so I have no idea how it's coming through. I apologize to everyone if my audio is horrible, but anyway, I've really been itching the whole year to give this to Donald Trump. I've been really wanting to have a go at that guy, but other people just keep being stupider. Like the Huffington Post, who is upset with Jimmy Fallon because he humanized Trump. Now just let that sink in for a moment.
It's, again, this whole idea of, like, they're trying to make him into this monster. I talked about this, and he says, well, he is human.
Yeah.
Same, like Hitler or whatever. They're human beings. Yes, get over it.
And I mean, I looked at the segment. It was friendly. It was funny. Trump actually got in a couple of good one-liners, and there was one point where Fallon even mussed up Trump's hair, which should put all the toupee claims to rest. So, what possible problem could he have with all that?
Yeah.
Well, what he said was, quote, Fallon's interview was an extended on-air puff piece filled with the same sort of polite give and take a late-night host reserves for an actor on an obligatory promotional tour. Fallon was predictably non-confrontational. Now, this is like The Late Show or something like that. It's not, hardball or anything like that. Fallon was predictably non-confrontational and willing to work with whatever Trump gave him. When Trump made a joke about fearing what people might do to his hamburgers if they know it's him before he orders, Fallon leaned back in his chair and let out a disproportionately large laugh relative to the funniness of the joke. Was it really that funny? No, it was not. Actually, I thought it was, and it was actually a pretty good moment for Trump, playing on how he's viewed by a lot of people.
Yeah, and, and I tell this to people, it's like, look, even if you didn't find it funny, that doesn't mean that Trump's a monster. It just means he's not funny.
Yeah, and this, again, I keep looking at this article, and I'm reading all this stuff, including the Twitter. Oh, goodness gracious. Comments.
I wasn't going to read any of those, but they're painful.
Yeah.
Oh, but I love this one. It says, let's see. I love this. Megan Arm saying, Fallon interviewing Hitler. Let's talk about your book. I'm like,
oh, Godwin's Law much?
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, quote, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. He said, quote, Fallon is not Letterman, and he never will be, nor does he seem to want to be. But that doesn't mean he should be let off the hook for humanizing a well-documented xenophobic, racist, and misogynistic serial liar, which is exactly what he did on Thursday.
He's still that doesn't make him a human. Why?
Yeah, I mean, what we should be doing is humanizing people, no matter how much against them we are, because dehumanizing them, which apparently is what this guy wants for him to be dehumanized. And I am giving this to HuffPo itself because he's senior editor, but if you dehumanize people, you make it easy to hate them, easy to even kill them. It's where bigotry and oppression and genocide come from. By saying this, he's proven that he's worse than what he's accused Trump of being.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of, and it's ironically brought up the Nazi card. This reminds me of this conversation I'm always having with this one friend of mine. Every time I disagree with him when we're talking about World War II and he's talking about, and like he's playing this one game where like he's liberating Berlin from the evil Germans and all that. And I keep bringing up, well, what about those hundreds of thousands of German citizens that were raped, murdered and had their stuff stolen to them by the Soviet army, and the Soviets and the Western Allies did nothing to stop this. And basically his general reply was, well, they were crowds. The Russians were mad at them for killing their people. And I'm like, that doesn't make them any better.
Yeah, it's again. Yeah, it's all these other people keep doing all this. Well, Trump is Hitler. All this other, I'm like, you realize all you're doing is feeding into, the whole, or you're making him seem sympathetic. That's the thing. You're the ones making him seem sympathetic by just doing all this. You build him up as this monster and such.
It kind of reminds me about how a couple of months ago, there was that one news post that said the reason why Trump's getting so powerful is because we didn't do enough to stop him. No, I will say this. In fact, many people like Lord Zarkon have said this. Even though we do not like Donald Trump and we do not want to see him get into the White House, the reason why he's becoming popular is because of people like you. You're feeding us the same crap. You're feeding us the same crap over and over again. We're getting tired of it. And finally, here comes a guy that says, I'm going to do something different. And he does sound legitimate. Now, yes, I don't agree with what he wants to do, but he sounds different. And that's why people are attracted to him, because he's actually doing something different, And I wouldn't say I would have compared to Hitler, but I will say a similar situation like that did happen in Germany with the rise of Hitler. Hitler didn't magically appear and take power. What happened was that the German economy was in the gutters. The Social Democrats were saying, well, if we tax and work hand in hand, we're gonna fix everything. And the conservatives weren't doing anything at all. They were just making the problem worse. And basically what Hitler says, if you put me in power, I'm going to make sure I'm going to fix all of Germany's problems. I'm going to bring back our pride. I'm going to fix our economy. And he sounded legitimate. And that's why people supported him. It wasn't, we didn't do anything to stop him. It was people like you lying and scamming us.
So there's an editor's note to this article, which is odd because it's written by HuffPost senior editor. But anyway, it says, quote, editor's note, Donald Trump regularly incites political violence and is a serial liar, rampant xenophobe, racist, misogynist, and birther, even though Trump went back on the birther thing and said that Obama probably was born in the U.S. But hey, way to be neutral and objective.
Oh, wait, wasn't she? I thought the person was describing Hillary Clinton.
There's been a lot of that today.
And that's another funny thing about Donald Trump is because for all the stuff he's done, he has admitted that he was wrong on a couple of issues. And it's so hilarious when people say, oh, he's so inconsistent. What's wrong with, realizing you were wrong and admitting, okay, I was wrong.
Because it's a weakness.
Yeah.
It's a weakness.
Yeah, it's a weakness. John Stossel did a whole thing about politics and all that in the race, and he says that's the reason why all these politicians behave the way they do. It's not because they're stupid. It's just because they don't want to appear weak. Admitting your faults and all that is mistakenly in the world of politics as a sign of weakness. It's this. Again, it's this cultist mentality. It's, well, you're the president of the nation. Everything you say has to be correct. If you say 2 + 2 = 5, you got to hire a board of mathematicians to come up with a new solution. You cannot be wrong, and admitting your faults is considered weakness when it's not. It's part of being a human being,
So all of that makes the Huffington Post this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well,
they're
guys,
always idiots.
Well, guys, thanks for joining me.
No problem, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
And thank you for listening. This wraps up the podcast for 2 weeks. We should be back the second Monday in October. Until then, here's a quote from Stanley Milgram. Each individual possesses a conscience which to a greater or lesser degree serves to restrain the unimpeded flow of impulses destructive to others. But when he merges his person into an organizational structure, a new creature replaces autonomous man, unhindered by the limitations of individual morality, freed of humane inhibition, mindful only of the sanctions of authority. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.